Okay, today we're going to talk about graphing sine, or we've talked about graphing sine and cosine with the transformations. We're going to talk about graphing tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant. We will not be doing transformations on those in this course. So graphing tangent of x. We know that tangent of x is sine of x over cosine of x. That means anytime cosine is 0, we're dividing by 0. That means I'm going to have a vertical asymptote. And we know that cosine from our unit circle is 0 here and here. That's pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. The coterminals to those would be negative pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2. We know this is 0 when sine is 0 because 0 over anything is 0. Sine is 0 at 0 and pi. So I have vertical asymptotes at pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2. And this is just going to repeat forever. Should be one here too. And then my graph has zeros, and always halfway between, every multiple of pi. And the graph looks like this. It's important to note where to put your asymptotes, because it's easy to screw this up. And that's why I specifically did the sine over cosine, so you can see where that is. If I do cotangent of x, that's cosine, it's the reciprocal of tangent, so cosine over sine. So now my asymptotes are where sine is, and my zeros are where cosine is. So the asymptotes are at 0 and pi. Again, we're not doing any transformations, so you can kind of just memorize these graphs. But it's important to be able to develop and put the asymptotes in the right way. The other thing about cotangent that's different from tangent is it's the same basic shape, but it's backwards, which shouldn't be super surprising. So that's tangent and cotangent. Let's do secant. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. And what I always do when I'm making these graphs is I will dash in my cosine graph. And yeah, I still do this. If I have to do it on my own, if I had it on a test, I would do this. Cosine starts up, goes like this. And yeah, if I were you, I'd plot those points where it is. I'm able to do that without. Now, the other part that's really nice about this, cosine's in the denominator. I mean, I know I have vertical asymptotes. Anytime cosine's 0, I can see right on my graph where cosine is 0. So I can just make my vertical asymptotes. And my secant are gonna look like this. It's little U-shaped things. These aren't parabolas. Parabolas mean something specific, but they kind of look like them. They're in these asymptotes though. And they do touch the cosine. People always ask me, which way do I put them? Well, they should touch that graph of the cosine. That's why it's so helpful to actually sketch that in. I'm assuming you can figure out that cosecant's going to be pretty similar, except instead of sketching in cosine, we're going to sketch in sine. Again, my vertical asymptotes are where sine is 0. So all these points where that sine graph that I sketched in touches the x-axis. And I didn't hit them dead on, but roughly. And then again, it's those U-shaped things, again, touching the sine. And that's what the cosecant looks like. Okay. Again, we're not doing any transformations on these. You just have to be able to create the best basic graphs for this class.